All right, folks, I think we're going to go ahead and get started. Got some housekeeping things that we'll cover. I'm sure people will be joining us over the next 5 minutes or so. But I'll just go ahead and start with a little bit of housekeeping. First, I want to thank everyone for being here today. We're dealing with a truly unprecedented time in our lives and in this industry. And there's a lot of concern, obviously, for safety and for keeping the lights on right now and how we're all responding to the situation. We're hoping that the content we share today and the participation from attendees can provide some much needed support right now. Our original intent was to have an open conversation and some interactivity amongst all the attendees, and we're still hoping to have some of that to some degree, but we have over 800 people registered for this. And it looks like we have about 340 and counting that are on the webinar right now. So with that many folks, it may get a little chaotic, and obviously we can't get to everyone. But we're going to do our best to allow for conversation and participation. This webinar will be recorded and emailed to all registrants, whether you attend or not. So if you need to drop off, don't worry about missing anything. We'll make sure we also provide a copy of all the slides that are presented to everyone in a follow-up email, and you should get that no later than tomorrow, if not sooner. So there'll be a couple different ways that we'll field questions and interaction from the audience. And the first way will be through the Q&A section. Looks like several of you have discovered that already. There appears to be, it looks like you can see who is asking questions, and looks like some folks have even chimed in with some answers there as well. But I think that's where the majority of the questions that we're going to be asking today, we'll grab the questions from there. Kyle is with us. Kyle Barr is our marketing director at Logical. So he's going to help field some of the questions too. The other way that we're going to allow for some questions, and we'll see how this goes. If it gets a little bit unruly, we might stop doing it. But we're going to give the raise hand function a shot. So if you raise your hand kind of during a break in the slides or during a break in topics, we will unmute you so you can ask a question. And we only ask you to raise your hand if you're confident that you're not in a noisy area. If you're not sure if your microphone is set up properly, please don't raise your hand. And if you're not sure if you're connected to audio, please don't raise your hand. So we'll give that a shot and see how that goes. I also want to mention before we get started today that at ServeNow, we've been scrambling. Kyle's team on the marketing side has been scrambling to put together some resources for the industry. For the last couple of weeks, that's all our marketing team has been focused on, trying to help the industry, provide some resources, answer questions. As much as we can. If you go to the top of servenow.com, you'll see that there's a link to a main COVID page for process servers, and it talks about how to stay safe, what's happening state by state, how to take advantage of the relief programs that have been announced, what you should be doing now in preparation for future work that's going to come through. And these are all things that we're going to be touching on today. But I encourage you to look at those resources, not just for potential help, but we also want your feedback. We can't do this alone. We need your help to make sure that the information is accurate. And, we want you to let us know if we're not including something that we should, or if there's something there that we should be changing, editing, etc. So lastly, I'd like to introduce Steve Glenn, and I want to thank him for presenting today, giving his time and energy back to this industry. For those that don't know Steve, he's the founder and president of the Process Server Association of Colorado. I've known Steve for going on 10 years from now, and I don't know many other people in this industry who have given back more to the profession and mentored more process servers than Steve. So this is the second such meeting that Steve has helped organize, and he's been dedicated to helping process servers throughout the nation weather this storm for the last several weeks. I also want to thank all of the influencers on social media that I reached out to, and all the folks at different associations around the country for helping get the word out. You're all a lifeline of what's happening in the industry right now. So let's keep working together to help educate and support. So with that said, I'm going to turn it over to you, Steve. It looks like we can see your screen, but it looks like we're seeing the current slide and the upcoming slide. So I don't know if you want to share.
Oh, I think it might be extended. Hold on one second. So are you saying you don't see the full screen, you see the partial screen?
I see the, I think, there we go. Yep.
So now you see the big screen?
Yep.
Okay, cool. All right. First, Trent, thank you very much. You know, I just want everybody to know I'm just a common guy and I'm trying to help how I can help. I'm hoping that today's presentation and that you'll be able to take something out of this presentation that'll help you calm the fears, reduce the stress, and get ready for what's going to happen when we actually do open back up. I want to just real quick give kudos to Trent, his team's Logical, Adam Cameras. I put out an email to our association to do a presentation, actually the first presentation that we did, talking about the different benefits and things or relief packages or things that are available. And I don't think it was out 2 hours and I got an email from Trent say, how can we help? You guys are truly, you know, a family to process servers across the nation. And I can't thank you enough for that, and also for the support you've given me and our association. I want to take a few minutes before I get started and bring on a good friend of mine, Adam Cameras. Adam is the CEO of Logical. We've become friends over time. I love what he does. I love what he is, what he stands for. So Adam, hi, how you doing?
Hi, Steve, doing great. Thank you.
Would you like to say a few words, sir?
Sure. Thank you. And I think just to echo what both Steve and Trent said is, I think firstly, this notion of we can all do more. I mean, these are unprecedented times that we're all facing, and each and every one of us can give and think about ways and what we can do to not only help our families and our friends, but also this industry. Some of you may know that one of our employees and somebody that many of you know has come down with coronavirus and was in critical condition. He's now stabilized and doing much better, but this is real and it's hitting all of us, and it's hitting all of us the same way. And so one of the things that I want to emphasize and something that we've been trying to reinforce with our team is to make sure that you stay safe. And same thing for each and every one of you. Your top priority is to stay safe and healthy. And I know that we all need to work and we all have priorities, but if you don't have your health, and if you cannot take care of your family, you cannot take care of your business and everybody that relies on you. And so that is the top priority, is making sure that you're doing that. And I don't just mean your health. Something that we're doing at our company is also making sure we're spending time on everyone's mental health. And I know that that seems and feels very hokey and, oh, I don't need that kind of help. But these are really stressful times. We're being bombarded with negative information and the news, and this is closer to home, and our businesses are potentially having some challenges as well. Although we've spoken to a number of our members and customers that businesses, as usual. So it hasn't impacted everyone the same way. This is going to sound a little hokey, but on the taking care of yourself, it's making sure you're getting outside and getting fresh air. And if you can get some exercise and just find a way to clear your mind. There are apps for meditation, and I know that this is something that's going to sound strange and odd to many of you, but it's a commonality that I've seen amongst many business leaders across the board using this as a tool to focus. and align their day. And there are apps. One's called Headspace, and another one is called Calm. And it's just 5 or 10 minutes a day of just listening to this app can really help you. I know that this is going to sound like a really odd thing to hear right now, but these are the tools that we're hearing and seeing that people are using to really help them go through this time. The obvious one is just a reminder: is wash your hands. I don't need to say that. For some reason, I cannot stop touching my face, no matter how hard I try. But we've all got to stop doing that. And another thing is forget what's in the rearview mirror and in your past. And you may have a local competitor or somebody that you've had some issues with, but now is the time to forget that. We all need to be aligned and focused and work together. One of the recommendations that we have is buddy up and find a local server and maybe even a few that, if you go down or if you have issues. I talked to one of our ServeNow members the other day, and 2 of her employees can't go out. So she's there all alone. And if she gets sick or she gets overloaded, she doesn't have help. And so those are the times for you to call on your colleagues, set up an arrangement. Hey, listen, if I can't serve this, can you do that for me? And I'll do the same for you, and figure out that arrangement. Now is the time to make sure that you are set up and prepared. And like Steve said, yes, we all know there's a lot coming, but now is the time to see if we can put some of those systems in place so that we can all prepare. We're all prepared, and we can all navigate this properly. As it relates to our team, we are doing daily video meetings to keep everybody on the same page. We even did, where our main office is in Denver, we've been on lockdown for days now. And so we did a company happy hour on Zoom, just like what we're on right now, just to keep everyone together and socializing. And like I said, see if you can find those ways to make sure you're looking after yourself and any of your colleagues, but also making sure that your business is set up to make it through this. There's a lot of other things that we could talk about that we're hearing from our great ServeNow and Serve Manager members, that are doing in terms of staying safe while they're serving, and tips. And I'm sure Steve's going to touch on a bunch of those, but I just we're here for you, and just honored to be able to participate, and just so impressed with what Steve has been able to put together in a very, very short amount of time selflessly.
Thank you, Adam. I appreciate it. Let's just get started. Bad things can lead to good things. The key is preparation. Do this presentation. My hope is that you get something out of this that you can take back, and it'll make a difference in your life today, and it'll make a difference in tomorrow and when we reopen, because we will reopen. Common sense. I found this quote, and I thought it was kind of apropos about the situation. Immediate necessity makes many things convenient, which if continue would grow into oppression. Expedience and right are different things. This whole presentation is about safety first. Safety first, protecting yourself so you can protect your family, and protecting your business so that you can be with us down the road. That's the key. Let's talk first about the COVID-19 or the coronavirus. The best way to prevent this illness is by avoiding being in contact with someone who is infected. The virus is thought to spread mainly through person to person. Sometimes it's contact. In the beginning, I didn't understand why the NBA stopped playing, but that's because those guys are sweating, and when they bump up against other people, then they're changing sweat, and then basically they're wiping their eyes or their faces. And this is contact between people that become too close, inside of what they say 6 feet. Oh, okay. It's also spread when people cough or sneeze, because the respiratory droplets produced when a person coughs or sneezes travels. These droplets can land on the mouths, noses of people who are nearby, or possibly be inhaled in the lungs. But according to research by scientists at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, it's not just the person next to you that you have to worry about, because coughing those droplets can go up to 6 meters, which is 19 feet. Then if you sneeze, it can go up to 26 feet. So this 6-foot buffer idea is to try and stay away from people as much as you can. But the question for me personally is 6 foot enough? Well, I keep doing the wrong button. I'm sorry. I gotta get, okay. What does the CDC say about attempting, what are they trying to accomplish by social distancing? They're saying reduce the spread of the virus by reducing contact with people. There are certain essential things that we have to do to be in contact with people, like go to the grocery store, maybe get gas if we're low on gas, whatever, but we don't have to open the door for the FedEx guy. We don't have to open the door for the UPS guy. They've actually waived signatures. But we're trying to reduce the spread of the virus by reducing contact with people. The question is can people without symptoms spread the virus? And the answer to that question is yes, because when they become infected initially, when they're just starting to cough and they're just starting to sneeze, that's when they're most prone to spread the virus. Okay, but I could be looking normal, yet coming down with the infection, and you have absolutely no idea that you're talking to a person that is infected because it incubates for, I think, 14 days prior. Can people without symptoms spread the virus? In a recent study with the New England Journal of Medicine, some people with no or very mild symptoms can shed significant amount of the virus. Children who the virus doesn't seem to affect show no symptoms or very mild symptoms, yet they're the ones that are doing some of the sneezing. They're the ones that are spreading it to the people who are, like in our age, older. And then we don't know we're infected and we take it to our family. Can the coronavirus persist on mail? They can persist on mail, produce at the supermarket, gas pumps, door handles, doorbells, stairways when you're walking up the stair to someone's house. It can stay there for up to 2 or 3 days, and it depends on the surface. If it's a cloth or something, it may only be there for 5 or 10 minutes because it can't really live that long. But if it's on a stairwell and you're holding the rail, you could be holding the rail and actually contracting yourself with the virus. If you think a surface may be infected, clean it. What I would suggest is just clean it more often than not. I mean, I'm wiping down my counters at home all the time. It's just my wife and I don't believe I'm infected. I don't know that I'm infected. If I was infected, it would not be very good for her because she has prior respiratory issues. So we're always wiping stuff down and cleaning. If we use common sense, we have to understand that any disaster, if it's a tornado or a flood or a hurricane, creates stress because people want, their first priority is to understand how they can protect their family from, in this case, this virus. They're also worried about their next paycheck and how they're going to pay the bills. They're crazy. I know me, I'm a worker bee. They call me a workaholic here in the office. Me being stuck in the house, you should see how many household chores I've got done in addition to spending 8-10 hours putting this presentation together over the last couple of days. I'm still getting things done. Why? Because being in the house, stuck in there, I can't watch only so many episodes of Maury Povich before I just want to take a nap. So the question becomes, when we talk about common sense, why would anyone open the door to a perfect stranger wearing an N95 mask and gloves? Because if you're serving papers and you're not using that PPE, personal protection equipment, an N95 mask and gloves, shame on you, because you could be infected and you don't know it, and you could pass it to someone, or they could be infected and pass it to you. And once you get it, it's a little too late to think about what I should have, could have done. It's a little too late for that. The question then becomes, why would you risk yourself ringing the doorbell, which that virus could be sitting on that doorbell because a friend just went in, or someone that's infected in the house just went in, or knocking on the door and then someone answering the door that may be infected yet not exhibiting signs. The question is, if you're at risk for being sneezed on, why would you put yourself in that situation? My friend Isaac called me the other day, and he serves for the district attorney in 2 or 3 of the different counties here in the Denver metro area. And he told me, he said, I opened this kid, 5 years old, came to the door. He opened the door, and as soon as I'm telling him, don't open the door, don't open the door. But as soon as he opened the door, it's like, he said, I just backed up and went away and talked to the district attorneys, and they all shut him down. They all shut him down because they care about him.
Steve, there might be a question or two worth reading right now.
Okay.
John Beal asked, should we be more cautious and drop documents at doorsteps instead of personally handing them to subjects?
If you were going to if I were serving papers, I would explicitly apologize, be apologetic and say, I'm sorry I have court papers for you, but I'm not being rude. I'm going to put these papers right here so that we don't come in contact with people. That's a very good question. And if I were serving papers, that's what I would do. But I would not just drop them and say, you've been served and move on about my way. That's rude. And that's probably going to get the next process server, whether we're in this with this virus event or not, probably assaulted. So that's a very good question.
And then related, Madeline Ann Lane says, I've not worn a mask or gloves, but I have stepped back and respectfully left if asked. And then Dan Lowry said or asked, how are people getting gloves and N95 masks? They are nowhere to be found in our area. I don't know if you have comment or question to that, obviously, but I just wanted to share what
in regards to Madeline. You know, I appreciate the stepping back, but are you stepping back enough? Because remember what the scientists are saying, that someone sneezes, it can travel 26 feet. Just so if you're doing that, that's great. If you're not doing that, I would encourage you to do that, because the most important thing is we have to understand that this event too will pass. And the question becomes is, what is our health going to be after that if we contract the virus? Or what is our health going to be, or what is our situation going to be if we pass it on to a family member that may not take it as well as we do? So if you're going to serve and you're going to back up 26 feet, 27 feet, I would be okay with that.
Got it.
Okay.
Lots more questions and comments flowing in. Someone asked the question. I thought we were going to talk about the process serving profession in this. Yes, we are. We're going to get there. We just wanted to start with some baseline, hopefully common sense type things, keeping yourself safe. But we're certainly going to get into the industry components of this.
All of this, in my opinion, kind of lends itself to our profession, to being a process server, because people who are serving, and let me just say this too. None of us are here to judge anybody in the decisions that they make. If we shut our business down, we shut our company down because I've got 7 or 8 people that could be affected and may not come out of that. But on the other side of that, there are some people who are still serving papers. I'm not mad at them. I'm not mad at them. So I'm just trying to say, let's take a common sense approach and let's look at the entirety, not just the relief that we can get, not just what we should do to prepare coming out of this, but let's look at all of this, because it's all one big piece of the puzzle when we put it together. So I keep getting questions over and over and over from process servers in Colorado and process servers around the country. It's amazing. And they keep saying, we're exempt, we're exempt, we're exempt. So a better question is, exempt from what? Many states, I counted this morning, I think there's 29 states that have stay-at-home executive orders. I think there's another 14 that have modified orders to stay safe and do those kind of things and to practice social distancing. But when we talk about the stay-at-home orders, they either have this language, essential services, legal services, or critical services. And when you talk about essential services and legal services, that includes process servers and process serving. That's why we can say that we're exempt from serving papers. Critical services on the other side, like Colorado went to, in my opinion, prohibit that. However, we don't know whether people are, the law enforcement is enforcing it. We don't know if the governor is enforcing it, but I do know that there's someone that we have an article on in New Jersey who was serving a federal paper with stay-at-home orders, and we believe that person has been ticketed for $1,000 in possible imprisonment. So we don't know how this is going to be. So let me just say this. In Colorado this morning, and I know this doesn't deal with most of the people that are on here, but I would promise you it's probably the same way in your state or county. 5 of the counties I called, 1 of them is not serving civil papers. The other 4 are. But they tell me that's because we're law enforcement. And if we ran across someone that was serving papers that was out there, it's officer's choice whether they write the ticket or not. Some officers will just give you a quick education, send you on your way, and some officers may write you a summons. So it's a mixed bag. I'm going to define these 3 things: essential services, legal services, and critical services, but I'm going to mix it up with another thing called a little bit of common sense. What does it mean process servers are exempt? What, from contracting or spreading the virus? I mean, I had an attorney call me the other day, and he said, Steve, I need you to serve this paper for me. I need it served today. And we emailed back and we said that we've closed basically our business down and we're not serving. And he wrote back and said, you're exempt. You can go serve. And I said, I'll tell you what, text me your home address and I'll come pick you up and get the papers and we'll go serve this paper together. 35 minutes later, he emailed me back and said, nah, that's okay. Just serve it when you're safe and there's no potential for fine. So these, in my opinion, these people sit in their office and where they're protected, where they're not opening the door to strangers, and they want to send the front line out to possibly find themselves either contracting it or spreading the virus or being fined or jailed by their state. So what exactly does exempt mean? Again, immediate necessity makes many things convenient. In other words, because of where we are today and people are uncertain about their future, they're uncertain about their income, they're uncertain about all these things, they want to make sure they can provide for their family. They make it easy and they use convenience as the answer. But whatever happened to the thought of safety first and then relying on the things that are being offered to us in relief so that we don't have to put our family in danger? Implementing this order, and I'm going to use Colorado again as an example, but I've heard from many states, and many states aren't giving any different answers to the process servers. In implementing this order, it's the expectation of the chief judges of the various districts will make every effort to facilitate work from remote locations and to minimize and or eliminate in-person proceedings or contract. So if it's good for the courts, why wouldn't it be good for me unless they don't care about me? Because I'm a process server, I'm a dime a dozen. I don't think I am, but I'm a dime a dozen in this example, and I can easily be replaced. If it applies to them, I believe it should apply to us. The courts also said in their order that they were hereby suspending certain court operations, but continue provisions, other essential court services throughout the state. In other words, what they're saying is, because we cut back and went to essential services, these are the things we'll take care of. We'll take care of, and I think I'm one slide ahead of myself. I'll do that and I'll come back. What they basically said is we'll take care of personal injury stuff. In other words, if it's a civil protection order or a restraining order dealing with violence, or if there's emergency parental rights responsibility where someone's being abused or possibility of being abducted, we're open for that. But we're not open for your normal small claims court case. In fact, all those cases have been pushed down the road. We're not open for your common summons and complaint or subpoena. So if it's okay for the courts to reduce their essential personnel and to work remotely and eliminate in-person contact, I keep getting calls from attorneys saying, you're exempt. And so I just asked the question of them, exempt from what?
Yeah, Steve, I think there's a question that's related to this topic. Robin Mullins asked, is there a difference in being an essential service based on the type of documents being served, collection documents versus, say, restraining orders?
Hi, Robin. Long time no see. I personally, and I think we get into this in one of these slides here, personally, we're not going to serve debt papers. We're not going to serve the normal summons and complaint or the personal injury cases for automobile accidents. But you send a civil protection order to me, and I'm not going to give it to my guys. I'm going to take it out and do it myself. It's not about the income. I'm not going to risk my process servers. If there's anybody that's going to have their health risk, it's going to be me. So I kind of hope that answers your question. I think that I did a safety presentation in ServCon in regard to safety, a presentation in regard to safety. And basically what I said back then is we can never, ever, ever eliminate assault of a process server. Well, the question becomes, when we're adding stress to that family, when they're already worried about money and now you're serving them debt papers or you're serving a summons and complaint, I think the tick goes up for being more apt to be assaulted. And that's something that we all should be looking to keep from happening. And the only way we can do that is by making sure that we kind of use common sense in this situation. Understand this national debt disaster, this pandemic, it's been years, hundreds of years since we've had anything like this, or even, I think the Spanish flu, they said 1917 or something like that, where it killed a bunch of people and there's a pandemic like this. So these rules and things that they put in place, they never thought this would happen again. So these are rare times. Good question, Robin.
Yeah, I want to say people are, there's a lot of questions and comments in the Q&A, and it's hard to kind of sift through all these when there's a lot of comments in there. If you have something that you want to share, or you have something that you want to debate, please use the raise your hand feature. And it looks like I see hands raised then go away. So if somehow your hand gets lowered, I'm not sure how that's happening, but just raise your hand again.
Maybe I'm answering their question, Trent.
Yeah, no, here, hold on. We got, looks like LaTanya has a question. I'm gonna unmute her real quick. Are you there, LaTanya?
No, she's still muted.
Oh, hold on.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, now we can.
Okay, I have a question. When a person that you are contracting through, if they say you're an essential worker, but you're in a stay home place, you're in a stay home in place, and they want you to serve the papers, and you're just not comfortable with that because this virus is airborne and anyone can catch it. It doesn't have a name on it. So are we still essential workers to go out there and still serve the papers, even though they're saying stay in home?
That's a great question, LaTanya. Let me say this to you. I'm not open. I have a kind of large company here in Colorado. I'm not open and we're not serving papers. And 95% of my attorneys agree with that decision. If you feel it's a safety issue for you, they cannot mandate you to go out. They can terminate your arrangement with them. But what I would tell you is there's a lot of good people out there and a lot of good process servers out there, companies that need people that have values. And I promise you that you would probably have not that much of an issue finding someone else to work for if they terminate you. But they cannot mandate that you go out because you're not their employee. But here's the question. So LaTanya, so in answering that question, let's change this over. So would your client or attorney, if you felt unsafe, pay any fines or court costs or attorney's fees if you got ticketed? Would your attorney maybe consider trading places if you were jailed? Would they pay your medical costs if you contracted or were sued because the family that you served decided to sue you because they think you infected their family? maybe you should ask those questions. But here's what I'm going to say to you. Your personal preference is your personal preference. If you work for me, I couldn't be mad at you for that.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I tell I remind my wife, because she's all concerned we're going to lose all our clients, and I remind my wife all the time. I said, so here's my question. I probably serve more papers in my office than anyone else. Would you want me out there? She says, no. I said, then that's the answer.
Okay.
That's the answer.
Okay.
Thank you, Latoya, for that question. Very good question.
Thank you.
Defend you at no cost if you're accused of infecting a person. Let me tell you about what I think could possibly happen, because we know how attorneys are. Attorneys like to find areas where people are soft or weak, or they didn't have the right guidance, and then they like to exploit it. So imagine every affidavit that you sign you get home safe, no one stopped you, you didn't get a ticket, but some attorneys puts a commercial on TV and says, "Were you served papers during the coronavirus in a stay-at-home state? Contact me." And that you become your own witness for the prosecution because you have a signed affidavit at the court. So it's a personal preference. If people who want to take that risk, take that consequence, I'm not mad at you, and no one should be mad at you. But people like Latanya should never be forced to go out and do something she feels unsafe about and or unsure about.
Steve, sorry, finish your thought. We have another hand raised.
Okay, let me finish these two things. Law firms earn money from billable hours, attorneys and paralegals. Debt collectors saw this as a golden opportunity. Ducks on the pond, people are confined to home, go get them. Question for Trent.
All right, Matt, I'm going to unmute you, and then we have a couple other people that have their hands raised too. Matt.
Hey, Steve. Hey guys, how's it going? Steve.
Good, how are you?
Look, I wanted to raise my hand. I've been debating saying this. I applaud you guys for the effort, and I appreciate you guys putting this together, and I think you guys are trying to do a good thing. I do think that a lot of what's happening in the call is kind of risky. I think there's a lot of anecdotal evidence being provided and a lot of personal opinions, some broad sweeping statements about industries. Collections companies are trying to do this, ducks on a pond. What would this person do? What would that person do? And my concern is that leads to a lot of speculations and more questions instead of answers. And I'd love to see a call like this where we have a medical expert that somebody knows come on and provide information about infection and spread and risk, and where we have a legal professional come on and give some actual answers about what's considered essential and what's not. I think everybody nationwide right now is facing a lot of difficult decisions as business owners, as people. I know some of the service process we have a number of guardianship clients, people who serve documents regarding people who have medical conditions that they're, where they can't make medical decisions for themselves, and families have to be notified in order for hospitals to move forward. I know that we're out serving a protective order today. So I think, to broadly say, and I don't know that those things are any less essential than a nurse who's actually treating the patient who can't because the family member can't be notified. So I think there are a lot of complicated questions here, and I'm certainly not advocating that anybody does anything that they're not comfortable with. But I think there's a lot of nuance here that's being overlooked. And I think that we might do very well to have another call where we have some experts on who are actually giving some definitive answers to some of these questions.
Matt, you're exactly right. I use the examples that I use because those are the most prevalent. But on those comments that I made earlier, protection orders, guardianship, I may not have listed it, but that would be under there because we don't know if that person's going to live or die tomorrow. And if they don't get the care they need, we certainly are going to do it. I would take that. I would do that. I would put myself personally at risk for that. I wouldn't put myself at risk for the Chase payment, Chase credit card that people are having paid. That's my point. But you're exactly right. There's a lot of different issues, but there is a difference in the guardianship and the civil protection order as opposed to debt collection.
Matt, thank you for raising your hand. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think you made a similar comment in there, and that's something that we definitely wanted to bring to the conversation. So,
exactly.
All right, we got. Looks Looks like Ralph. If Ralph, your hand's raised, I'm gonna unmute you now. I think. Oh, looks like he lowered his hand. How about Mark? Where did Mark go? Mark, you should be unmuted.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, this is kind of in response to what Matt just mentioned a few moments ago. I was kind of hesitant whether to state this or not. When he mentioned about either scientists or medical community, I actually have a master's in genetic engineering from about 30 years ago. And the reason why I had to drop that is because the government made transgenic humans, meaning humans with extra DNA, illegal. Hence, gene therapy was thrown out the window.
Hey, Mark, could you speak into your microphone, please? You're breaking up, and I want to hear this.
Can you hear me better?
Yeah, that's better. That right there is better. Yes.
Okay, I guess I need to speak a little louder. My apologies. So, being that with a master's, I changed careers. I went into IT and investigations, and now I do processing as well. What I want to state about the virus is this. Speaking as a genetic engineer, this virus, just like all other viruses, will not go away unless you kill every host and disinfect every single thing the host came in contact with, which is next to impossible. And even in doing that, there's no guarantee that this can reform itself in the wild by mutation. So that being said, what they need to do is what they do with other viruses, smallpox, for example, vaccinations, flu virus, and what have you, is produce a vaccine that either taken one time or yearly, like with the H1N1, so that people don't get reinfected. Because as it was stated earlier, even those carriers who don't have symptoms because they're genetically basically immune to this, if you will, can reinfect people. And because of the severity of this virus that causes pneumonia, basically, with a secondary infection, that's why they give you the virus medication they give to flu patients, along with a very powerful antibiotic for the secondary infection. And usually within most patients who are healthy, within 2 days, their lungs clear up. And then within 2 weeks, the symptoms dissipate. But then when they come back and test them, the reason why the test comes back as negative is because the titer is so small in terms of the viral infection, it can't be detected. I'll give you one other example, herpes. Those who have herpes have what they call herpes outbreaks, but the virus never goes away. And viruses are also known to remain dormant in people's nervous systems. So they need to produce a vaccine if this truly is a virus in the wild. They can't just simply tell people, oh, you can go out now and everything's fine, because either people will be reinfected again, they're going to keep it, to a minimum in terms of the media saying, oh, we have a problem again, so that people don't panic, or they need to basically ensure they need to produce a vaccine. On the flip side, looking at the virus similar to AIDS, it is bioengineered. I'm telling you that right now, it's bioengineered. Whatever they say, it's bioengineered. HIV only has mRNA in it and its payload. Nothing living only has mRNA, which is a byproduct of DNA. The mRNA produces proteins, hormones, what have you. So the reason why they can't combat AIDS is because no sooner are they trying to produce an antibiotic against it, it has over 23,000 mutable forms. So they can't get the proper protein coat. It almost looks like a little mini soldier that just keeps changing its structure. With this, similar effect. So if they bioengineer this, when they do bioengineering for bioweapons, you would hope, and usually if it's temporary, they will build into it genetically a temporary senescence, meaning it can only survive for so long. So maybe that's why I'm using both sides of the flip coin here. One side, it was produced naturally through mutation in the wild or bioengineered. And the fact there's hints that it's bioengineered, hopefully, if this was done for the competition between China and America in terms of the petrodollar, or who knows what the reasons were behind this. That being said, when they say, oh, this will go away, one form of consolation perhaps to people is if they produce a form of senescence to this virus, it only lasts for so long naturally and just go away by itself. It'll just die. Or they'll release something else into the environment that'll just mysteriously make it go away. When people start going back to normal again, you won't hear anything else of it. And they won't even say there's a vaccine. I'm telling you the science right now, if you see that day where this just goes away and there is no vaccine, trust me, this was designed and it just went away by itself because it had a half-life senescence designed into it genetically.
Hey, Mark, we have a lot of other people that have their, any final thoughts on that? We have a bunch of people who have their hands raised and have more content to get to.
Sure, two last things quickly. One, when they say go back out and live as normal, don't let your guard down. Continue to follow the sterile technique until they either produce a vaccine or this is definitely gone. Two, in terms of legalities of some lawyer using this as a money-making machine to say, oh yeah, as Glenn was saying earlier, if you've been infected, contact us so we can open up a class action lawsuit against the process servers. Hopefully the judges and the government will come back and produce some form of law that says that's not allowed, because that would be inhumane and it should be illegal. They shouldn't be allowed to bank on this. So hopefully we'll be protected by that. But for now, Glenn made a good point. There is that possibility that, it can come back to bite us later by, some lawyer out there trying to make a buck on process servers and this pandemic.
Thanks a lot, Mark.
Thank you, Mark. That was great. Mark, I didn't put my contact information down, but I'll get a hold of you through email, and maybe we can get you to write a couple articles for Serve Manager in regards to this, or Serve Now.
We also, we have a bunch of people asking about the debt stuff, and we're going to get to all that. We do have a number of people that have their hands raised. Are you okay with taking a couple more of those?
Let's
right
take
now,
a couple
Steve?
more, and then we'll get into the protection and the relief stuff.
Okay. All right, let's go, let's see, Ralph. Ralph, are you there?
Hi, Ralph.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Hi. Yeah, no, I have a question.
Oh, I think you may have muted yourself. Hold on.
Okay, how do I do that?
Go ahead, Ralph.
Yep, you're there.
Okay. Yeah, we have a lot of papers that we're serving, like for registered agents, and we're finding that when we go to the offices to serve the papers, they're all in quarantine, so they're asking us to email them the subpoena or email them the summons, and I'm just wondering if that's going to be considered proper service.
The registered agents, commercial registered agents, and or registered agents of, that like they're their own registered agent at home, or a CPA that's a registered agent for a company, they get to make up their own rules, in my opinion, how they would accept papers. If you contact them and they tell you to email it to them, and that would be acceptable service, just keep the email and then also have them reply that they received it. Does that make sense? In other words, leave yourself for paper trail. So I wouldn't have a problem with that if that were happening. I'm going to call CT today and CSC and see if they would do something like that so that we can get these papers served. But that would be a great way to do it. Just make sure you leave a paper trail. If you're going to write an affidavit, make sure you get a paper trail of when you sent it. Keep the email that they replied that they got it, so that there won't be a question.
All right.
Good question. Very good question.
Take a couple more. Is that okay?
Let's go.
All right. Looks like Mike Reed. Looks like you have your hand raised.
What's up, guys? Can you hear me?
Hi, Mike.
Yep. How you doing?
Hey, guys. What's going on? I'm really enjoying all the great information. I appreciate it. So I just wanted to ask a quick question, Steve. What do you think about? I know none of us really know too much, but I'm curious what you think about the laws that are going to end up getting changed because of this thing. In California, the governor's pretty much allowed all process serving via email. And I know we got the associations that are going to step up and fight against it. But what are your take? Do you think that this is going to have a huge impact on that?
These are rare times, so rare decisions. My philosophy, Mike, is this. If I were investing today, like I was investing in 1970, I'd probably be broke. So things morph and change, and we have to be flexible. Anthony Robbins says, take effective action. He uses the acronym T, take effective action. You take action, you notice whether it's working, and you be flexible. And so if that's what comes of this, that's kind of what comes of this. Right now, people are trying to fight for their life and survival and protection and money and all this stuff because they're uncertain about the future. So I wouldn't think that the temporary things would also always become permanent. But if they did, then you have to morph your business to make it work for you. It's that simple. Because if like the gentleman, I think Ralph is his name, I think he said that registered agents are allowing us to serve them by email. I would go for that every day, all day, and write the affidavit for it as long as I kept the trail. I wouldn't have a problem with that.
That's good. Yeah, I kind of feel like adding additional services to your business is probably going to be the way to stay afloat if you plan on staying in the industry.
Being flexible and morphing into the future, or morphing into the current, and then so that you can protect the future, is the only way to go. I mean, look, it's either this: you're a leader or you're a follower. And if you're going to be a leader, then you have to say, okay, they gave me this. Am I going to make lemonade out of it, or am I just going to look at this lemon and I'm going to watch it rot?
That's good. I appreciate you answering my question. Appreciate you guys doing this. This is good.
Bye-bye, Michael.
And just to reiterate, I mean, we're doing our best to open the dialogue and to bring the community together and to have a conversation. I think some comments, I just want to address that to a certain degree. We're just trying to provide a forum for conversation here. We're not saying that this is how you should be working, and we're not medical experts. Steve and I are not attorneys. We're just trying to provide a forum for the conversation. Adam, I don't know if you have any additional thoughts on that as far as the disclaimer goes here.
Yeah, and I can't remember if we mentioned anything at the beginning, but also on the accounting side, in terms of the things that we're going to get to, just to echo Trent's comments, everybody needs to use their own best judgment and do their own research. Things are happening quickly. This came together very quickly, and we're all just trying to do our part. It's not going to be perfect, and even going through this, people have questions. They may or may not be relevant to you, but just be patient. There's a lot that we're going to cover, and we will circle back and improve these and make them more meaningful and more impactful.
The idea, guys and ladies and gentlemen, the idea is this: if you just live your life in a bubble, like looking down a one-way street, you never really see, or driving or living your life in the rearview mirror, you never really see what's vastly out there. Hopefully, some of the comments and the questions that people ask will make you think, and if they make you think, then maybe, hopefully, you'll take action, whatever that may be. So let's move along. Protecting my business and taking advantage of what's offered. The Congress passed the coronavirus stimulus, a $2 trillion bill with direct payments to individuals of up to $1,200 per individual, $500 per child in your household, and allows business owners, this is key, allows business owners and independent contractors to file for furlough or temporary unemployment. There's also SBA disaster relief for small businesses. How do these things help us? Let's talk about the SBA disaster loan first. This will assist businesses in paying their office rent, business utilities, salaries. I'm going to also try and get included in my disaster loan to be able to pay my independent process servers. If I can go back to paying them what they were averaging making and get them off unemployment, I'm going to be a very happy guy. Why? Because the kicker is this: any portion paid for salary, office rent, or utilities will be forgiven. Why wouldn't I dip my spoon in that pool and take care of my people? So if you haven't applied for SBA small disaster loan, maybe it's just you by yourself. If it's just you by yourself, then maybe unemployment is the answer. But what I've told my guys is, go apply for unemployment. When I get this SBA loan, then we'll get you off unemployment. That'll open it up for someone else. And guess what'll happen? You'll get paid. We'll all be happy. And then we'll write it off at the end of the day. I'll take care of that with the government. State unemployment. I'm going to tell you my story because my story, I think, is probably the story of a lot of people. I've been in the workforce since I was 15 years old. I'm 59 now, so that would be 44 years. Not one day have I applied for unemployment. When I got out of the Navy, people ask me, why are you working so hard to get a job? You can take a year of unemployment. I think it's a year of unemployment, and they won't ask you any questions. I'm like, I don't want to be on unemployment. And then my wife, when we got married, she lost her job a month after we got married. And when you lose $80,000 in income plus what I was bringing in, I worked 3 jobs. I got 14 hours of sleep a week because I was not going to go on unemployment. So pride. But what I'm going to tell you is I had to put that pride aside because I have to make sure that I can take care of my family, and I filed for unemployment. If you're in Colorado and you file for unemployment, I don't even know, I haven't checked the website today. You're going to have to reapply again if you're a business owner or an independent contractor because they haven't gotten the funds from the federal government. And under the old program, you don't qualify. So unemployment is available to everyone, employees, independent contractors, business owners. It's just a temporary furlough. What I've been hearing is that it's not like regular or normal unemployment. You're supposed to get close to what you were bringing home. Every little bit helps that way. My strategy is to use unemployment until my SBA loan is funded. And if my SBA loan is funded prior to my first employment check, I'll cancel the unemployment or I'll send them their check back. Then someone else will be available to get that. Especially with the SBA going to give me a loan that I can write off, or not write off, but they're going to forgive the fact that I'm paying all I got to do is prove to them that I was paying salary with that money, not using it to build my business, not using it to pay off higher interest loans, and they'll forgive it. You can't double dip on both of these, so just be aware. Alternatives. Someone asked a question prior to the meeting about alternative employment opportunities. Amazon went through their fulfillment centers, and Walmart and CVS, local grocery stores, fast food restaurants are all have their signs out for people. They're looking for people. I'll tell you, in the Dallas area, my nephew applied. He was going to apply for Amazon, and then he started hearing that people were going to strike because of the work environment, and there were lots of people coming down testing positive for COVID-19 when they didn't have it before. So be careful where you go. Pay attention. If you go there and you find that they're not protecting your health, don't be there long. Now we get to the part where we talk about what are we doing in this business? Because I get stir crazy. I told you about all the honeydews I've already got done and all the honeydews I've got planned to get done while we're doing this, but I'm also working on my business. You know, we have to understand that where we were when this happened isn't really where I want it to be and where I want to be into the future, because all of us, let me just say this. I'm going to commend all of you, because this guy here, Art Williams, was a mentor to me. And basically, here's what he said. He said, if you work hard, live right, find something you believe in, you'll beat 90% of the people just by waking up in the morning. The other 10% is the dogfight. And I can tell you that every last one of you that attended this meeting today is in that top 10%. You're in that dogfight. Why? Because you come to a meeting and you spend an hour, hour and a half talking about how can I protect myself and how can I protect my family, because you want to get better. So that's my way of saying to you guys, thank you for coming and letting you know that I'm happy and I'm proud for you. All of us are in a situation where we need to evaluate our business. We've all have things that we wanted to do in our business, but we never found the time to do them. We work long hours, we get home at the end of the day, and no, I don't want to deal with it. On the weekend, I don't want to deal with it. But it also involves implementation and strategies for implementation. It also involves training. And it's a million excuses, but now is the time. There is no other excuses. If we reevaluate our business and make our business better, when the onslaught, which I believe is going to come after we reopen, when the nation reopens, we're going to get all that business back. And you're going to get slammed, and either you're going to be in a position to handle it efficiently, or you're going to end up losing business. So now is the time to prepare. So when I start looking at how am I going to go about evaluating my business and how am I going to prepare for what's going to be coming, I got to check what I expect, and I got to look at ways that I can cut costs. I found out through this, my Google AdWords wasn't working. I was spending $400 or $500 a month, and when we cut it off, guess what happened? We still did the same amount of business. So I was just sending them $500 a month. Then our Adobe, you know, where you can edit PDF documents, like if we're going to go get a file rather than handwriting. I can't, my handwriting sucks. So I had 6 different accounts because I thought I needed one for each computer. What I found is the only one that really uses it is myself. So I went down to one. That's $100 or what, $100 or $200 savings, whatever that is. So look for ways to cut costs and make yourself more efficient. Review your workflow. Everybody had a trough, I want to call it, for lack of a better word, of work that you were pulling from or you were sending out to your servers. Some of those papers were on hold and now they're expired. Some of those jobs had expiration dates and they're expired. You need to review, you need to look at those documents and then email those clients and let them know this one's on hold, now it's expired. We're going to keep it on hold. Don't cancel it. We're going to keep it on hold for about 2 or 3 weeks after this thing opens back up, and then so you can decide what to do. But same way with the papers that are expired. Also review the process for getting papers to the field and creating affidavits. Review every procedure that you have in place for your business. Why? Because if you can make it more efficient, and what's going to happen, if what happens is what I believe is going to happen, the nation's going to open back up. It's going to take 4 or 5 days for them to get their bearing, and every paper that they should have sent to us for however long we were out, they're going to send it to us, plus new stuff. Why? Billable hours. And if you can't handle it, your customer service bogs down at that point in time, then you're probably going to be more apt to lose a client than you would be in a situation where you wouldn't serve paper due to safety. Communicate with your clients. Josh, my business partner, his favorite saying is, let's get ahead of our clients. Don't wait for the phone to ring. So call them about the papers that are on hold and are expired. Remember, they're working from home and they're trying to get their billable hours in. Communicate with your team and staff members. I try and call all my guys once a week. I'm going to try and call them once a week, and some more than that, the ones that are really nervous about what's going on, and talk to them about their papers that are on hold or expired and see how they're doing, kind of calm the storm. One of my guys, Jerry, he's 73. He's probably served for this company for almost 30 years. And what I'll tell you is this: when I told him that he can file for unemployment, there was relief. He says, and then he called me back and he said, but I can't get through. I said, Jerry, you go to the website at 6 o'clock in the morning. And he went to the website at 6 o'clock in the morning. He was able to file. So ensure they file for unemployment. Just help them out with those kind of things. And this is one of the things we spent in the first presentation. We spent a lot of time on. Place your personal and business debt on deferment. There's nothing wrong with that. We called Chase and GMC for GM Pace and whoever else who has my other car loan, and we said we'd like to ask for a deferment. And both of them said, sure, let's do 3 months. Boom. Now, me having the pride that I have, if things return to normal real fast and my cash flow stables out real fast, I'm not going to take those deferments. I'll just make the doggone payment. But they're not going to hurt you and they're not going to ding your credit just because you're asking for help. They prefer to hear from you now, not when your payment is 5 days late. With the servers, review the rules of service and maybe even use a program like Zoom to do some training to help them become better, help calm them down. You got to understand, these people are attached to you, and when they get to talk to the leader, guess what happens? Things become normal again. They start thinking that they don't have to stress as much because, hey, this guy's kind of guiding me. That's what we're all here for, is to become better leaders. Create and review policies. We have started trying to write policies, and then we get busy and we start and stop and start and stop. Consider family leave or family vacation. We had a lady that worked with us. She was pregnant. We don't by federal law, we don't fall under the family leave where she can take time off, and we could save her job, but we could also replace her. What we chose to do is tell her she could take 2 months off and we pay her half her pay. Now we got to put that in writing so that everybody else follows the same guidelines. Same way with personal time off. So we can look at writing a surveillance policy or writing a policy for our servers and how they get paid and how they need to give us invoices, and review our independent contractor documents that make sure we have them in order. We also have to evaluate ourselves, and this is probably one of the most important things, because if you're a leader or you're a follower, and if you're a business owner and you're not a leader, then you can't say your business is giving you all what you could be getting from it. So how can we become a better leader? Time management, read books on personal growth, client follow-up, employee server training, work on running your business, not working in your business. These are the kind of things that we never have time to do, that we can sit down and take time to do now, so that when we come back in, we're more confident, our staff is more confident, and we can handle the workload that's going to be coming down the pike. Just remember this: all you can do is all you can do, but all you can do is enough. You can't do no more than all you can do. Applying for the disaster loan to help your staff and your process servers, hopefully. Filing for unemployment to make sure you're personally taken care of. Deferring your personal and business debt payments. Hug your spouse. I have to remember to do that, hug my spouse, because this morning she woke up and I said, "What's wrong?" She says, "I just feel anxious." And I had to tell her again one more time that I love her and that we're going to get through this. And I'm not worried about the clients we're going to lose, because you know what I know? We're not going to lose as many as most, but a lot of them that lose people, they're probably going to come to me. That's my attitude. I could be totally wrong, but that's my attitude. And if I'm not strong, I probably walk home every day to her crying, and I don't want to do that. She shouldn't be hurt. That's how I look at it. So remember to hug your spouse and make them understand you love them, you're there for them, and you have a plan. That's what this whole presentation was for. You have a plan. In conclusion, I'm going to say this thing about common sense again. Immediate necessity makes many things convenient. In other words, because we need money, we have this urgency for this, we'll overlook safety, we'll overlook this, we'll do this, which if continued would grow into oppression, kind of like what Tanya says. People cannot force you to go do something against safety or do something against morals. Expediency, in other words, acting fast is not, and acting fast and making rash decisions is not, and right are different. So making rash decisions and doing what's right are different things. That's Thomas Paine, 1776. So with that, Trent, let's see if we have any more questions. Before we do that, because I know there'll probably be a lot of people leaving because we're at the question and answer, you have to consider yourself a leader. Why? Because you were here today. I hope we gave you something that you would be able to take and make something out of it, and then take that little seed and grow it into a big tree. If Trent, you have my permission, I didn't put a slide in here to give anybody my cell phone number. Hell, I'll give it to you now. Watch this: 720-253-5773. If you have questions, call me. If you're anybody who calls you, I know. If you have any questions, Trent, if anybody calls you or asks for my contact information, give them to it.
Please don't call Steve for the next 30 minutes or so.
Yes.
But I think we're going to, Adam wants to add a couple things, and there's a lot of people that have raised your hands. Keep your hands raised. We'll try to get to all of you. And then this might lead into what you're talking about more on the relief side, Adam. I think you want to chat a little bit about that.
Yep.
We'll try to get to some of the Q&A questions as well. I just see one comment by Evan. He said, just wanted to mention that the SBA direct loan that is available, which is also posted on the Serve Now COVID page, allows for a forgivable loan for up to $10,000. It's easy to apply for. It's not the same as the PPP, Paycheck Protection Program, as far as I can see, question mark. Adam, I know you wanted to kind of elaborate on some of the relief stuff as well. So after you're done with that, Adam, then we'll start fielding some verbal questions from the audience.
Sure. Yeah, Evan, exactly to that comment. Yeah, I wanted to elaborate a little bit more. Now, full disclaimer, I'm no expert, and again, do all your own research and due diligence on this and check with your advisors. That said, what we are finding internally is very hard to get accurate information on this. And to Evan's comment, so firstly, this is something that our understanding is everybody should be applying for this. There is the EIDL, and that stands for the Economic Injury, hold on, let me just make sure, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan. There's a $10,000 advance. That is, the understanding is that is going to be forgivable. And supposedly they come very quickly. We don't know. We haven't applied for this yet, so we don't know for sure. And again, these are changing every single day, but that is the first thing. And I wish we would have said this earlier while there were more that were here. The other thing along that same application, and if you go to servenow.com, you'll see the COVID resource for process servers. If you click on that and click onto aid and relief and aid section, you will see there's a link on where to apply. The advance may be separate from the actual loan, but just to provide a little more context to those two items. So there's the EIDL, which is the, as I mentioned, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan. So there's the advance of $10,000 that is potentially going to be forgivable. Then there are also low interest loans that as a business owner, you can apply for those. I don't know exactly what the requirements are, but I think the loans cap at 3.75% and go down from there, and they're long term. So these are loans intended to be more easy to qualify to get us through this. And then the second portion that Steve mentioned is the paycheck, the PPP, which stands for the Paycheck Protection Program. And right now, that is what they just announced last Friday. I've been checking with our bank feverishly every single day. That's not something that you can do through the SBA. That is totally separate. That has to come from your bank, from a credit union, and there are some other resources. And maybe it might behoove us to do another webinar just deep diving on these relief options, at some point. But we're going to do our best to keep that information on the ServeNow page. What I heard yesterday, and I heard conflicting reports of, can you apply for the EIDL loan and the PPP, the Paycheck Protection Plan? And my understanding is no. And let me just give a little more context on the Paycheck Protection Plan. Originally I heard it was 2.5 times 1 month's salary. So if your payroll is $10,000 in a month, that would be $25,000 that they would give you to offset that. That may have been changed down to 8 weeks, so that would be $20,000 that you would get that is potentially going to be forgivable. And then the questions that I'm trying to understand is if you apply for the EIDL and the PPP, which is not available yet, can you do both? My understanding is you can't do both. And then one person that I heard from yesterday said that they might take the portion of the EIDL and apply it to the PPP. And I know that this is all very confusing, and we'll try and provide more information as it becomes available. Hopefully I didn't just confuse people more with that, but feel free to go to ServeNow and chime in with questions on that. But my understanding is the advance is something that happens very quickly, and it's $10,000. I believe it's up to $10,000. It may be forgivable, and supposedly those are funding pretty quickly. And that is, probably one of the most important things for everyone on here to go and apply for and see if you qualify for that. And that happens on the SBA site, of which there is a link to that in ServeNow.
Adam, that's a great idea. I know that they talked about 8 weeks because they wanted you to be able to provide paychecks for your employees and take care of them for up to 8 weeks. And so, and I was not aware of the paycheck with all this stuff going on. and we'll do that. But I would tell everybody, encourage everybody, apply for everything and let them figure it out. Because in reality, the more things you provide for, the more times you sit down and do deferments and things like that, the more options you have. And maybe you may not have to use this stuff, but the more options you have, the less stress you have.
So Steve, on that front, now on the payroll paycheck protection, because that is supposedly not going to be figured out for the next couple of weeks, questions that I saw were, well, should I rehire back all my staff and pay them? And the feedback that I saw was, no, wait a little bit, but you actually have to be paying your staff to be able to qualify for that. So you can't apply for that unless you are truly paying for your staff. But if you have no work right now, or if your work is minimized and you don't need them, you probably don't want to bring them back prematurely, until you know exactly if you can qualify for the system, and if it's going to work. So again, just tread very lightly. It is extremely confusing to figure this out, and hopefully we can help bring some clarification to these concepts, over the next couple of days and weeks.
I think, Adam, I think, that's a great point. But what I believe, it don't, to me, common sense, but I guess common sense and government sometimes don't go together, is I think that the reason why they did the unemployment is because that's probably the fastest way for people to get paid. And the idea is you get on the unemployment, and like in a train, you get on the unemployment, you go by this stop, and once you get your loan or whatever you get, your paycheck protection, whatever you get, then people fall off of that. That way you can pay them for 8 months or 2 months after that. That's kind of my idea.
Let's get to some of the questions from the audience. We have some very patient people that have had their hands raised for a while. Paula, David, William, Ralph, Crystal, looks like you all have your hands raised. Paula, if you still have a question or a comment, I will unmute you, maybe. Oh, I just muted you. Are you there, Paula?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, Paula.
Hi, Steve. Hi, Trent. Hi, Adam. Thank you guys for doing this. It's really pretty cool that you guys got out in front of this and put this together. So initially when I raised my hand, my question was about kind of what Adam just addressed with the relief options, and it's all very confusing. And I've been working with my business attorney, and he's been very gracious in trying to help me. So I just sent him a text when you guys were talking, and I said, hey, would you be interested in being a panelist if we do a webinar later on down the road? Because he's actually going through this with me. And but my initial question was, have you heard of a process server yet that's been able to obtain, successfully apply for the money that's now available for 1099 folks? I'm hearing all kinds of problems with the forms. They haven't really caught up to what's being released, and I was just curious about that.
I have not. In fact, I was told that we had to reapply, and it should be, but they haven't really. They keep telling us, don't reply yet, don't reapply yet. So we're just keep checking every day until we can.
Okay, so is it your understanding if a process server does apply for some relief, they can still take work, right? Or is that unclear?
I don't know.
Yeah, I think we've had other questions where, they were a independent contract process server, and they were also, they also had a full-time gig that if they got laid off there, or could they still take on that work and collect unemployment? I don't know. It seems like it's a little bit of an unknown. I've definitely seen some people state that they could not apply for it if they were still taking on some work.
Yeah, it's really confusing to everybody, and we're trying to, give as much information as possible. So, in my example, there's a lot of my folks are affected by this, but so in the example, somebody making $1,000 a week, serving papers on the high end, now is making $200 a week because, the work's dried up. So they were asking me if they could apply for the portion that they're missing, you know, if they have historical data, and I just didn't really know the answer to that. So
what I would recommend is I'd always, in this particular case, I would apply and let them tell me no.
Exactly.
Because I think they're going to try and do everything to make people whole, because this is of no fault of our own. So I would tell my people, you apply, and if they got declined, then we see what I might be able to do to try and help them. That's what I would do.
Okay, well, thank you guys. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Paula, for coming. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of me for having you here.
Oh, stop it. Hey, I was going to also say that if anybody wants to buddy up and be a positive mentor to me, I could really use that right now, because I am probably one of the most positive people that you'll ever meet, but this is really hard. I'm not going to lie. It's very, very hard. So if there's, you know, people out there that want to be like inspirational gurus at this time, let's partner up and let's keep each other positive. I would be happy to do that for somebody else as well, but I'm not gonna lie, this is very, very difficult.
Yeah, can I call you later?
Yeah. I think I just opened up a can of worms with that, but
yeah,
anyway.
Everybody's gonna call you. That's right. Everybody, I'll give you Paula's number. It's 555-1212.
No, look, I think, Paula, to your comment, you know, all of us are hard workers and proud and independent. You know, but the hardest thing is to make a statement like that, you know, we're all going through this together. And I commend you for asking for that help. And I hope that everybody else, you know, that's listening, that, you know, feels that way, feels confident and comfortable enough to also, you know, go out there into the community and let them know that what you need and what you could use and what you're willing to give. So thank you, Paula.
That's leadership right there.
Paula is awesome. So track her down on LinkedIn or Facebook, and definitely friend her. So
thank you.
And to your original comment about your attorney, I mean, I do think that a natural progression of a meeting like this does include, you know, a expert in all these areas, whether it's, you know, the finance, unemployment, medical, mental health. You know, I would love to see a panel, you know, ultimately morph out of this with, you know, experts in all these different areas that, you know, whether there's a lot of unknowns now, or, you know, I think it's good to hear different perspectives. So let's move on to William's been raising his hand for quite some time. Let me see if I can get him unmuted here. William, are you there?
I'm here, sir. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. Thank you for taking the time to let me speak. And thank you all for participating. It's very rough times. I just have a quick question. This thing about accepting service, empathy is probably one of my #1 and to share with everybody, but people still lie and deceive the purpose. And we try to serve corporations, you know, by email, talking to the HR directors and so forth. I have a colleague of mine, he's real good in this field as well, but I just want to share with others, as long as there's an agreement between parties, the email, the mail through the register mail or certified mail, and then if the document is not that large, you can also fax it, and then you can do a proof of service with an affidavit with that. That would be suffice. But my question would be, it's the challenge later for the MTQ if they're going to, you know, try to quash it down, even though we're using, you know, like you said, the steps to protect everybody. So any thoughts on that?
My idea is the rules of service are meant as a guideline. You can't take a guideline and say there's only one way to do something. For example, what I mentioned earlier was that if I was serving someone because they told me to serve them by mail, I'd have that request, I have their answer, I send them the paper and I would put the receipt on there so that it showed that it was delivered. And then I would get them to send me a response telling me that they got it. If they wanted to go to a motion to quash, I would tell the judge all I could do is all I could do. They told me to send it to them. Give you a good example. I served a gentleman in Colorado, Rule 69 interrogatories that had to be served to him personally, not subserved. When I got to the gated condo, the security guard, I had the security guard call him. He answered his phone. He says, I'm trying to get into my front door here, but if you can leave the papers with the gate guard. So I did that and I wrote it up just like that. Well, the judge said all he could do is all he could do. And he told the attorney who tried to quash service, you have your guy here Thursday, or I'll send the sheriff to go pick him up. So just as long as you protect yourself, all you can do is all you can do. And I don't think any attorney is going to get upset with you for doing all you can do.
I agree. I agree. Thank you so much for your time.
Good call. Good question, William.
Thank you, William. Crystal has had her hand raised for a while as well. Okay, Crystal, you should be able to talk. Are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you guys for hosting this. I have two questions. The first one is regarding the SBA loan that you were talking about. It says on the internet you're required to put in your routing number and your account number. However, it also says that it takes 3 days, but a lot of people are saying that these are tied up with their banks. Is this particular disaster relief loan the one that's up to $10,000 different than the one y'all are talking about? That's my first question.
Steve, I can take that one if you want. So my understanding, So my understanding, and this is Adam here. So my understanding is the application comes from the same place on the SBA. I personally have not been through this process yet, so I don't know the exact process. But my understanding is you apply in the same place for it, and that portion is called the advance. But they recently, as of yesterday, put a new application process in place. But I don't believe that that is coming through banks. I think that that $10,000 advance is coming from the actual SBA. The PPP, the Paycheck Protection Plan, that will be coming from your banks. And my understanding is right now, the banks have no idea what they're supposed to do with it.
Okay, thank you. My second question is for the industry overall. I am from Virginia, and we are not licensed by DCJS here. So we are kind of on our own when it comes to some of these things. If our industry does move to more of the electronic serving for now, how are we as unlicensed servers going to be able to process these without, I know some of the other states with their guidelines, people are authorized to do service of process. Here in Virginia, we're not technically, and it's just anybody that's not a party to the action. Is that going to change for our industry here in states like this?
In Colorado, we're not licensed either. But I think if you can show, which you can show through the rules of civil procedure, that there is, or state, that there is no requirement for licensing, I don't believe they would hold that against you. Okay. For example, our Rule 4 says 18 and not a party to the case. So if I showed them the Colorado Rules of Civil Procedure, 18 and not a party to the case, that's me. And then I can back that up with my tax returns showing that I've been serving papers for a long time, then they would, so they may just require proof, but I don't think they're going to hold it.
I guess the reason I asked that question is because it seems to me that if they're going to start doing that, and in the event that our industry does take this a little bit further, the need for a process server is probably going to decrease, because then anybody would be able to just send an email and get a confirmation.
There's always scammers out there.
It's our hope that, any sort of allowance for electronic service would be temporary or short-term, temporary. But, ideally a process server is still part of that process. We think that, through technology, you could still keep the process server involved in the middle of all this. But I guess there's just we haven't seen enough information as far as electronic service yet to really comment too much on it. I mean, you guys probably have more specific stories than what we do. The electronic service that we've seen kind of allowed or suggested have been more on facilities for records and things of that nature, and on corporations. But it's our feeling, and it would definitely be our goal, to make sure that an individual process server is still the one who is fulfilling the service or process.
Thank you.
Um,
We got a bunch of other hands raised here.
Can I say one thing real quick to that?
Yes.
Crystal, you can always also verify it too. If you get your work from attorneys or you get it from another process server, they can write you a letter on their letterhead. Anything you can do to evidence the fact that you are a process server. Go ahead.
Dina has had her hand raised for a while. Let's unmute her. Are you there, Dina? Dina, can you hear us? No. Let's go to Troy. Troy, are you there?
I am here.
Great.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, by the way, thank you very much for doing this webinar. It seems to be fast moving and a lot of information. A couple quick points. One, kind of talking about the discussion that Steve was having regarding service and rules. In the state of Florida, process is strictly construed. So be very careful about using it as a guideline in the state of Florida. So think about what state you're in as you're making decisions on how you're doing things. That would be one of the biggest things I would think about, because I know different states have different rules, but we are actually very strict. That being said, we are also in the most strangest time that we'll probably ever see in our lives, hopefully. Nothing ever worse than this. The second point I was going to make is, I think from a moving forward period as far as technology, this is going to change our industry as a whole for a very long time, and we'll need to, as process servers, need to adapt to those changes with electronic service, and also probably with such things as best practices, because even when we get through this period of shutdown, however long that is, 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks, COVID-19 is not going away for just going to be gone. We're going to be, and so to ensure that we are not becoming part of the problem and spreading the COVID-19 and to protect ourselves, I think we're going to need to put in best practices for how we conduct ourselves when we are going to people's homes. And then just on a last note on that, in Escambia County, Florida, there was a Facebook post that I saw today that they're actually trying a process server up there, maybe a sheriff's employee, maybe a sheriff's appointee, I'm not positive by the post, was tested positive for COVID-19. So now they're having to go back and trace every place that process server went over the last couple of weeks and trying to track down every person that came in contact with that process server. So we definitely want to make sure that we're not part of the problem with spreading this. Thank you.
Thanks. Good comment, Troy.
Let's see. Let's go to Bruce. He's had his hand raised for a while. Bruce Florek.
Can you hear me?
Yep. Go ahead, Bruce.
All right. My question is, as I understand it, oh, excuse me, I got to close my door. My dog is barking here.
My kids almost invaded the office. I think my wife got in time.
I'm sorry. So as I understand it, the unemployment thing, it states that you have to been paying in unemployment insurance or you cannot collect it. Do you know anything about that?
I don't.
You know, it's like, I'm just me, one person. So I never even thought about getting unemployment insurance. And what I
Oh,
understand.
well, wait a minute. Okay, maybe I misunderstood the question. When they say as an independent contractor that you can apply for unemployment, independent contractors are 1099. And so you don't pay unemployment. I don't think you pay unemployment insurance. So they're telling you that you can apply. I would apply.
That's what I'm hearing too, even if you're an independent contractor.
All right, well, I'm going to take your guys' advice and just apply for everything and see what sticks.
That's practice.
All right, thanks a lot, guys. One other question. I got into this late. I didn't see the email till late. Is this entire webinar going to be able to be downloaded so I can listen to the whole thing?
Yep, we hope that we can get it posted to our site by the end of the day, and it also will go out in an email to everyone about the same time tomorrow as well. So yes.
All right, I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. David Hirsch, let's go to David. 1 second.
Hello?
Yep, we can hear you, David.
All right, so I'm actually in New York. So a couple things I wanted to mention. Number one, I think that the thing they brought up about the electronic service really scares the heck out of me, because if they make it acceptable, there's a chance that they could make it acceptable routinely going forward. As long as an attorney did his own service and has proof that the other person received it, it could eliminate in certain situations the need for a process server. It would be my recommendation now that as a group, maybe even NAPS, would get together and try to just shut down this thing throughout the country, because it's actually pretty dangerous. I don't know how that would work procedurally, but it would be a lot safer if all of us were home, get through this however long it takes, and then move on, and hopefully the industry's intact. Once they start making it routine to do electronic services, I don't know that we go back, and slowly throughout the country, they'll start making exceptions, especially to serve CT Corp or Secretary of State or things like that. So that would be something that that would actually pretty much, really scare me. A second point I wanted to make about the SBA loans, and you can comment on both. It was my understanding that in order to do the SBA payroll thing, you have to keep your employees employed in order to get the money back. In other words, in order for it to be a forgivable loan, you can't lay them off now and then see if you get the money. You have to keep them employed, and then you could hopefully get the SBA loan and get it forgiven.
I'll take the payment, the Paycheck Protection Program. So David, your understanding is correct. However, the questions that, so yes, they have to be paid. However, I've seen some mixed feedback in terms of people have already been laid off and they've stopped paying them. And I think there's a percentage, like maybe some level of furloughed employees. And I actually, embarrassingly, I didn't know what furloughed meant until this all started. So I had to look that up, and that just means that you are only working a portion of your role. And so if it is I want to say up to 80% of, and don't hold me to that number, but I think I saw something like up to 80% of their traditional payroll, then they would qualify, or maybe there's a sliding scale on what percentage. But the feedback that I saw was that if you've already laid them off, then you can rehire them for that period. And again, these are all the unknowns from the business decision, because if this program changes and you don't qualify and you've hired back people that you don't need right now, that can be really detrimental to your business. So one thing that I saw is, as a small business in operation as of February 5th, 2020, with fewer than 500 employees, that's some of the eligibility, and there are some sector businesses. I guess there's some with more than 500 employees, but I don't know. So forgiveness grants. SBA will provide 8 weeks of loan forgiveness of funds applied to payroll, cost, mortgage interest, rent, and utility expenses between February 15, 2020 to June 30th of 2020. Again, This is not coming from the SBA. This is another site that has this analysis of it. So we don't exactly know how you're supposed to handle and navigate that outside of the fact that they have to be employed in order to qualify for the Paycheck Protection Program.
Right, so I was very hesitant to try to use that for that reason because A, I don't have the funds to lay out and pay all my employees for the next indefinite amount of time on the hopes that I may get the loan. And then if I get the loan, I may get it forgiven. So if that's a recommendation, I just think people should use caution because it could be very dangerous. And unemployment now, from what they're saying, is that a lot of people you're going to get, even if you're an independent contractor, you should get unemployment plus I think $600 from federal. So a lot of people may actually make potentially equal to or greater than what they make normally by just taking advantage of unemployment, at least here in New York. I don't know about elsewhere.
Yeah, that seems different. And again, you are spot on. I mean, we are taking the wait and see approach, which is really scary. But
I fired everybody. I'll be honest. I laid off everybody. I told them I hope to bring you back as soon as we can. God willing, we'll open up and bring them all back. That's what we want to do, obviously. Yeah. But I can't take that risk. It'll be in the, it could be $100,000 real quick.
Yeah, we're calling our bank every single day, which is probably not a good suggestion, multiple times a day, just to try and see, and they don't have the information. So you can't make a business decision based on information that you don't have. So that's where you've got to evaluate and, do you apply for the EIDL so you can get some funding and a low interest loan so that you have some capital there, even though you're going to have to pay it back, and hope that you can apply for the Paycheck Protection Program. But, again, those are things that you're going to have to really think through and sort through the details. It's really overwhelming to figure it all out right now.
As a business owner, recommendation. Yeah, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I'm just going to encourage everybody to apply and let them tell you that you don't qualify, as opposed to letting the window run by and find out you could have and you didn't. Now, my employees, what I basically told them is, you'll get your check. When we payday was yesterday, so we paid them. We don't know what's going to happen next time, and we've encouraged them all to apply for unemployment in case they don't. But the plan is for them to, if we don't get this thing in place in time, for them to collect unemployment until we're able to qualify or told we're not. And even if we're told we're not, then they are already in the system and in line for their unemployment check. But I will hire them back when we get to the end.
Right. And any thoughts regarding the electronic service and your fears or lack thereof?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Electronic service, any thoughts related to that right now?
Most courts are issuing guidelines. I told you Montana basically said, call the people, see if they'll do it. I think I talked to someone yesterday, and I can't remember what state they were in, and they basically told me that they were told that they could serve them through social media or by email. It's just, in Colorado, I wouldn't do any of that unless the courts directed it, unless the registered agent said to me they would take the papers. But they don't want to meet me, but I have a paper trail for that.
Right, but then there's no need for you. The lawyer could do that. That's my concern.
No, they always going to need a third party because the lawyer can say that it was done. But do you have the proof? No, I lost my computer. No, it doesn't work.
No, the same way we would keep a paper trail, they could keep a paper trail through Gmail or whatever service you use.
No, I get it. Yeah, I just think we're putting the cart before the horse, and it's not doomsday. I don't think our industry is going away.
And I don't know how, a Gmail or a social media platform is really set up to be that trusted third party. I mean, from our perspective, being, a software provider, we certainly, it's in our best interest to look at technology that keeps the third-party process server as the one who's still affecting service, whether that's physical or digital. So, that's one thing that we're paying really close attention to. But still, a lot of unknowns in that regard, and certainly something that we're keeping our eyes on, and we're trying to gather as much information as possible there. I would imagine the, hey, you can just email it scenario is going to be very temporary until, you know, some rules get put in place. That's the hope. But.
Right. All right. Because I agree with you, and I hope you're right. My concern is that any time that something is used in an emergency, it can potentially, all it takes is a lawyer down the road to use this as a precedent. Yep. And then, you know what I'm saying, it can be a downward spiral. So my recommendation was that as a group, we should try to not do that as much as possible and try not to have it happen. Like I said, you guys might disagree, and that's okay. But I would shy away from doing any services like that if I can, so that it does not become a precedent. And if they ever are talking about legislation changing in different places, and it could be a state-by-state situation or even, you know, type of court, you know, situation. But it could have a lot more lasting effect than we think. That's all.
I agree. That is a concern, the precedents there. But thank you so much for your comments and questions. Let's see what Gail has to say. Gail, are you there? Can you hear us?
I can hear you. I just unmuted myself. Hi, guys.
Hi there.
Hi. Okay, so to David's point, David, right now, in order to do service by social platform, a judge has to order it in New York State, and I believe that's true in the rest of the country. And as to what Trent said, it's not going to, that's not something that's going to change overnight. We do need an uninterested third party. That's the spirit of the law and the spirit of a due process. If any of those things come to pass or legislation is presented to change that, believe that NAPS, NIPSA, and the rest of the agencies will chime in and say that this is not the best practice because it's against the spirit of the law.
Yeah.
In addition, what you're going to really see with this change, and I agree, things are going to change after this because we're working remotely and people are seeing that we can work remotely. And it's not only going to change the process serving industry, it's going to change everybody's industry. So what you want to look to is how can technology help us in our business? And let's stay ahead of that curve so that we remain relevant. How can we use these changes? Right now in the courts in the city, they're doing arraignments by video conference. So these are the areas I think that will change more than simple service of process. And that's where you need to start focusing on the positive that we can get out of this, you know, and think towards the future. This COVID-19 pandemic may not be the last one. We may have others that come along. So we have to stay prepared and use the tools that we're developing now, these forums that we're using for webinars and stuff. And I'm sorry, I'm on my soapbox, guys, but look at it for an opportunity, just as everybody else here is talking, and look to the experts in the fields like ServeNow. And thanks, guys, for doing this. It's so important for us to stay informed and have a forum to think. And at the same time, Glenn, with your conversation about what's the morally right thing to do, this is an important conversation to have, because as we're speaking, there are other process serving agencies and process service who are saying, well, I'm still working, so send your work to me. That shouldn't be what this is about. This should be about how do we survive? How do we look towards the future? How do we implement the things that we're learning every day in our own businesses so that we make the industry better and we make ourselves strong and we stay relevant? So
exactly, Gail. I totally agree with you. And, you know, I tell my wife and I tell my kids this, and I'm sorry, you can finish after that. I'm sorry I cut you off.
No, you did. That's fine.
Here's what I tell people. 90% of the things that we worry about never come to fruition. Have you ever thought about that? Look back in your life and find out how many things you worried about that never came to fruition. So I don't know.
Worst case scenario. You know, what's the worst that can happen?
Exactly. I told my wife if we lost all of our clients, we started a business, I just opened a restaurant, right, Trent? Tomorrow.
Good call. You might be able to find some cheap space and equipment, but.
Gail, I want to comment to that just in general, and most of you that are here don't know, but ServeNow and ServeManager, we have a sister company called Legal Talk Network, and it's a podcast network for legal professionals, and we reach hundreds of thousands of lawyers and legal professionals every single month via podcast, and work with a bunch of state bar associations. And one of the things that I can tell you is law firms are all going through the same thing as well in terms of technology and change and thinking out their business. And can I do this all remotely? And scrambling to figure out how they're going to do this. And per Steve's comment in terms of billable hours, or if they're working on contingency. And so there are significant changes. And there was a question that came in about help and resources. And not to say that you have the time to do this right now, but if you go to LegalTalkNetwork.com, and there's also a little section right there on the homepage, COVID-19 resource for lawyers, where we've aggregated podcasts that are put out by bar associations, the American Bar Association, some state bars that we work with about tools and tips. And it might be helpful for you to understand what your customers are thinking about right now. And it's very similar to a lot of the things that we're talking about right now on this webinar. And so I just wanted to provide that as a resource. And yeah, it certainly is easy to worry. Don't get me wrong. There are real things that are out there. But we all just need to stay focused and do, as Steve said, everything that we can do right now. And if we need to protect and fight this industry, this meeting is a perfect example. I don't know, I can't recall in the 15 plus years that I've ever seen a larger congregation of industry professionals in one single place than this meeting right now. And this is the opportunity for us to use this platform, grow, and a vehicle to make sure that this industry is meaningful and relevant and existing and not just surviving, but thriving from this.
And to Gail's point, it should be us. We should be the ones getting ahead of this and figuring out how service is perfected in times like this, through technology and whatever means are out there, because it may not happen on this scale again, but it will happen. It may just be a week or a couple weeks where you got to pull the ripcord or switch to plan B. We all need to have business continuity and other things, policies in place so that we can continue to operate in times like this. The law firms, the courts, they're all going to figure out how we continue to operate in times like this. And it's important for us to be thinking about how process servers can continue to be relevant in times like this as well. Look, Jim's been waiting a while to talk. Let's see if we can unmute Jim.
Hi,
Jim,
can you hear me? Yes,
Yeah.
can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Hi, I just wanted to address the concerns about electronic service making us obsolete or whatnot. The unfortunate fact is, especially here in Central Florida, lots of people are losing their jobs, which means people are going to be accruing debt. And when this is all done and finished, there's going to be a lot of work, unfortunately. I mean, people are going to, we're going to be serving credit card debts and whatnot. There's going to be a lot of work, and you can't serve that electronically or by email.
Yep. No, I think you're right. I'm sure, Steve, you have, and maybe even Adam have some comments on that, but it's not just how we survive now and how we keep ourselves safe now. It's thinking about how we prepare ourselves for that work that is going to be coming in when this starts to subside. So thank you, Jim. Lots of comments and questions in there, in the chat still.
I tried to answer some of the ones in the chat.
Sure. Well, chat and QA are two different things. We're not really using the chat. We're kind of more using the QA.
No.
Someone had asked earlier, Steve, and I think you probably can touch on this, but you had, or someone had brought up business disruption and how their insurance might cover that. I know it really depends on your policy and if you have that in there, but do you want to talk about that for a second?
Yes, in our last presentation, we talked about that, and I had mentioned, because I had talked to Michael Yergi earlier in the morning, and he told me we had $25,000 worth of coverage that we could go for, and it was just built into his policies. I had one of my members, Judy, actually call me and said that she called the insurance company and they said there was no coverage. So this morning, I called Michael and I said, this is what you told me and this is what I told people. So what's the real answer? And he says, I've contacted the insurance companies and basically here's how this rolls down. He says, there is no coverage for a national pandemic. Now he said, if your building fell in, or you caught on fire or anything like that, then you would have coverage. But because of a national pandemic, most insurance companies never wrote that into their coverage. He said, however, there is a lawsuit, and I think he said a chef who owns 12 restaurants is filing for business interruption, and he was declined. So he filed a lawsuit in regards. He said, we'll keep an eye on that case because if he wins, then that means everybody else is going to win. So this hasn't been settled yet. I don't know. I mean, from the insurance standpoint, it's settled and closed. But I think that this lawsuit may help, and I also think I'm hoping that the federal government will get involved to help provide relief to people who have office rent that they need to pay, or business interruption insurance. So that's what I hope, and I'll keep an eye on that and hopefully report back when we get back together.
Steve, I don't know if you have any thoughts on this. This might be related to an article that I think a lot of us have seen on social media, and I may have even shot you a link related to this in the last couple of days. But Dina mentions there is legislation in Texas that is trying to ban all debt collection, and she asks, do you know anything about this? I don't think it's just in Texas. I think this might be going on in many other states. Steve, have you looked into this at all? Do you have any information?
I tried to find where there would be and my research to this point has found that most of the state Supreme Courts have taken care of the people who work in their courts and left it open about taking care of process servers. Now let's think about this. How many process servers are attached to the Supreme Court? Not one. They don't have authority over us other than give us the rules. In our state, give us the rules for service. Some states are actually, their service rules are generated through the state legislature. So what I would say to you is that there is no answer. I've been trying to call our Supreme Court, and they keep telling me we don't have a response for that. And it's because we don't fall under their purview, for example. I'm not their employee. So the old rules and old laws are what's in play. Now, in regards to debt, I can understand why Texas and I think other states will probably fall into that same category of trying to cease and desist or stop service or process in regards to debt. Is because people are already stressed out. They're already wondering how they're going to make their payments, and they're not making their payments in regards. I mean, some of them, these cases have been going on for a long time. They haven't paid you before. Why are we creating more stress? That's how I would look at it if I were in charge. So it's really sad because that's going to hurt the process servers who can't go out there and serve. But at the same time, it's going to provide relief for those that are being subjected to people hounding them, trying to get them served. So I mean, It's a double-sided coin. It really is.
Joseph just dropped in a link, I think related to that question. I replied to it so everyone could see that link there. Adam, I think you wanted, I don't know if those questions are still in there. The person asking may have dropped off, but someone was asking questions related to what should my pitch be? How do I prepare my company? Is that still something that you wanted to address?
Yeah, sure. There's a question, how do I make money now? That was another one that came up, and I jotted down and just a few notes, but yeah, what should my pitch be? What should I be doing now? And Steve, you may have some thoughts on this as well as others, but if you do have downtime, use that to get your business in place and ready. And one of the things that you can be doing is like be a mystery shopper in your business. What's it like to be a customer? Am I being found? Is my website professional? Is that my accurate information that's even on my website? Does that phone number still work? What tools or technology, am I using? If I'm still doing affidavits, in Microsoft Word and running my business in Microsoft, there are lots of, and again, have immense bias here, but there are tools out there that you've never had the time before to go out to review and monitor. And there's a lot of technology that can help you optimize your business. This is what the law firms are being forced to do right now as well. So, create a mailing list of your customers. Do all these things that you didn't ever have the time to do because you're so busy running the business. Now's the opportunity to work at your business. You're normally working in your business and you don't have the time for all this. Now you may have the time. Let your customers know that if you are still serving and you're making the decision to serve right now, or you can do it safely, that you are still open for business and that you can help them, or the types of papers that you are serving now, the emergency orders and child protection, things along those lines. Use this as a time to sensitively communicate. In fact, I think we put together an email template. And Trent, is that in a newsletter, a Serve Report newsletter, or is that on Serve Now? I can't remember where we have that.
As far as business continuity, we're still in business. We're unable to work remote. That's the blog post on Serve Manager if you go there.
Okay, so there's a blog post on Serve Manager where there's an email template that you can be sending to your customers, but use this as an opportunity to communicate, get your business in order. Maybe you're not serving right now, but maybe there are other services that need it. There are people that need errands run and grocery shopping done and courier work and other things that maybe are outside of the purview of your day-to-day job, but use that as an opportunity, endear yourself to your customers right now and let them know that you're here to help. And again, not judging if you stay home and be safe and don't go out, but there probably are some essential services that you can be providing that can help them. And I think that was my my list of these things, but get your business ready and do the things that you've been holding off and have had on the back burner for all this time would be one of the recommendations. But communicate with your clients. If you've gone dark on them or you've never communicated, be a little bit more proactive and call them. You're thinking about them. You're here to help. And who knows, maybe that there is something that you could do for them remotely. Maybe there's something different, but just like I said, be valuable and helpful to them.
Thanks, Adam. I'm going to open it back up to Gail in a second, but I think there's a couple points in the Q&A that I just want to read, just as food for thought here. And if you guys that I'm reading your comments want to raise your hand and talk about it more, feel free to do so. Lance Randall is saying David's point about setting precedent is imperative, ! 2 points. 1, if we serve by email or certified mail, we're basically indicating we are okay with this and that is going to come back to haunt us. And 2, since when do the servees dictate how they are served? That was Lance. Thank you for that, Lance. Again, feel free to hop on, raise your hand if you want to. John Byer said, I don't believe work is just going to flood in when this is all over. There are going to be moratoriums or for foreclosures, collections, evictions, etc. It could be several months after it is deemed safe to go back to work before work returns to normal. Any thoughts on that? If you guys don't, food for thought. I think we should all be thinking about that. You know, the opposite side of the coin. But Steve or Adam, if you have anything to comment on there, feel free. Otherwise, if you don't, I'm going to unmute Gail. I think she wants to talk about PR as it relates to the process serving industry.
Oh.
Oh. Gail, you there?
Yes, I'm here. So this is a conversation I've been having with Trent a lot. Being from New York and being the legislative chair of NIPSA, dealing with people in terms of process service and getting things done to recognize process service and what we do is a huge problem. We have a major negative connotation. And while we're all here and while we're in this crisis, now might be a good time for process service to consider how we can advocate ourselves and make people realize that we're not the bad guys. Maybe we can elevate our public image somehow, because part of the reason people keep trying to shut us down is because of our public image. People like to kill the messenger, and attorneys like to give us the blame for their service of process. So while we're doing this, while we're reconsidering our businesses, while we're looking at the future in terms of what we're going to be and what role we're going to play, is there some way we can elevate our image? Can we, since we're boots on the ground, since there are people, process service out there every day, is there some way we can make known that we're not the bad guy, that due process is important, and that we're a public service, and gain back the role that we have in the checks and balance system of the judicial system? Is there some way that we can utilize this opportunity to raise the image of the process server? I don't know what you guys are thinking, but I'm thinking that if we can do that, then going forward, we won't have to fear whether they're gonna change service of process. I just think that it's a conversation that we need to have.
Okay, Gail, I wish you lived in Colorado. Oh, I just wish you lived in Colorado. So let me tell you why I started the Process Service Association of Colorado. When my wife and I started making really good money, and you can really make a lot of good money in process serving, even if you don't have the business acumen, you can learn that over time. But the one thing that we can't give people is honesty, morals. We can't give them ethics. We can't give them work ethic. So what I tried to do in protecting, everything I try and do it in the way that puts me second. I mean, it's kind of for me, but it puts me second. So I started the association with the idea of protecting my business. And we decided here in Colorado that we were going to be different, the association. So we do a lot of training stuff. So because I felt that if I could help the people that wanted to make a lot of money, that had the work ethic and the honesty, if I could help them become successful, I would drive out the riffraff that was there and basically uplift the profession, our profession. And I think to a large extent that has actually worked really well here in Colorado. We have, we're constantly over 125, 140 members. Some drop off because they leave the industry. We're always doing training, like safety training, how to serve how to serve people who are difficult to serve, how to do surveillance to serve papers. We created a certification course so that we can teach newbies coming in how to do it. So we're encouraging people to get involved in the association and learn so that they can their business and raise their income. So what I would say is that I can't talk or make other associations do what we do, but I'll bet you we do about 10 training sessions a month. I mean, 10 training sessions a year. We usually take July off and December off, and there's sometimes we miss other months. But what I would tell you is, anybody is welcome to attend our training. You don't have to be a member. And we might talk sometimes about Colorado rules, and they may have to substitute what their state rules are, but process serving is process serving. The state associations, if I had an opportunity to challenge them to do one thing, is to provide more training, more education. Does it take time? Yeah, it takes more time. I mean, to put together just this presentation, I thought I was done until I talked with Trent yesterday, and I put almost 14 hours in, and then he said, no, we got to add this, and we got to add that, and I have a question here. But you know what? Leaders do what leaders need to do to help people, and that's what this is all about. So you're right, we do need to uplift it, but the only way we're going to uplift it is through training and people becoming more professional. And when you become more professional, then you weed out those that are dropping papers. You weed out those that are unprofessional because they can't compete. Their affidavits are always wrong. Their invoices are always wrong. They don't answer their phones. But when you teach people to do those kind of things, then they end up uplifting themselves and actually making more money.
I think we have to get in the news. I really think we have to get into the news in positive ways. Because in New York, we do the training, and our association is not as big as the industry in New York is, but we do try and elevate the process service. The problem is that we get such negative press, and we need to combat that with positive press. And I'm trying to figure out a way that we can show the public that we're not the bad guys, and that's got to come through press. And I don't know I know there are process servers out there that are doing good things and trying to help their communities, but I think we need to publicize that more and focus on the positive things that we do. And if we can think of something that we can do while we're serving process through a crisis that we could get publicized, wouldn't that be an elevation?
Yes, I would agree. I would agree. But I think that was something like in New York they would have to run those ads in New York. I mean, I couldn't do anything for them in New York. Maybe NAPS could, but I couldn't.
Cool. Yeah, I think that's definitely a conversation to continue, Gail. Thank you for that. I'm going to read just a couple more comments, and I think we have another hand or two raised, but hopefully we can get this wrapped up in the next 10 minutes or so. I know we've been on for a while. As it relates to supplementing income, making money right now, Ann says, I'm supplementing with mobile notary for insurance and real estate and debt collection letters. Thank you for that. And then we have a comment, it's from someone who's anonymous, but as far as other new revenue streams, and this is more of a point than anything, my PI surveillance clients have been very clear they don't want video of what people are doing during quarantine, as it won't play well in front of the juries. So I thought that was an interesting point. Jim said, please let people know regarding the unemployment. It all depends on your state and their formula and means test. The feds will be funding in the background. Watch updates with your state unemployment website. Read the updates online, don't call. States are getting direction from the feds on how to disperse funds, etc. Minnesota plans on possibly having something in place by this Friday. And then we also have Cliff, who's had his hand patiently raised. See if we can get you unmuted there, Cliff. Can you hear? Yep, we can hear you.
Got it. So there's just a couple of things going on in California that I wanted to share. One of them being some of our courts are totally closed for civil. So they're open for like restraining orders and criminal matters, but the attorneys continue to send work. And we're printing them and prepping them and getting ready to take them to the court once these courts reopen. But we're talking about each attorney service having several hundred filings. And there's a lot of us in California for these particular courts. That's going to create a huge backlog situation at these courts that are going to try to deal with this onslaught of volumes and volumes and volumes of work. And the impact of that could be 2 or 3 months before they're really caught up and flowing smoothly again. So there was talk earlier about how COVID is going to have an impact with more work, especially for collection accounts, et cetera. But there are many counties throughout California and probably throughout the country where people are holding back on work. They're not doing as much as they can because can't get hearing dates in certain areas if they're not holding hearings, et cetera. I imagine that there is going to be a several month period where the courts are going to be dealing with trying to stay current with new work and catching up with all of the work that's been backlogged that will be submitted. So I just kind of wanted to bring that to people's attention. And it's just an additional thought to think of.
Thanks, Cliff.
Thank you. Awesome presentation.
Thank you, Cliff.
Thank you so much, Cliff. Great, guys. Any comments on that? I think, there's still a lot of chatter and some questions in the Q&A, and I think what we'll do is we'll do our best to make sure that some of these questions either get answered and on the agenda for next time. I should have done this earlier. We still have about 250 people in the meeting right now. I just launched a poll. If you see the poll, please answer it. Just some basic information on what's going on in your world right now. We definitely want to know if you want us to do something like this again, and if so, how frequent. You certainly can shoot us an email and give us any feedback as well. Steve, I think some folks asked for your cell phone number again. Do you
I don't have
really want to give that out?
I don't have a problem with that. Adam, why are you laughing? I'd rather talk to them than to talk to my clients sometimes. So 720-253-5773. Just don't call me. And don't worry, if you call me after 10 o'clock at night, my phone automatically goes to silent. So, but call me if I'm on the phone with someone else, I'll return your call.
Yeah. And if anyone didn't hear, I think I was talking over the area code, but it's 720. Was it 720-253?
5773.
Awesome. Cool.
And Trent, I'm mad I can't answer the poll.
Well, that's because you're part of the webinar. And then Paula is back with us. She has raised her hand. Let me get her on here.
Hey there. Can you hear me?
Yep.
So I just wanted to make just a quick, maybe if folks are thinking about working on some compliance stuff, if you've already binged watched Tiger King and Ozark and now you're looking for some other things to do, most of us have already enacted our disaster recovery plans just in the sheer fact that we're still at home and we're working, and we can start putting together some of these policies now while we have some downtime. I know it's really hard to work on that stuff, and right now, while it's really super stressful, it may not be the best time, but it does help take your mind off the stuff. I've kind of revisited all of our policies and tweaked some things. I did not have anything in there for this particular situation that we're all going through. I had things like, for my disaster relief policy, I had things like hurricanes and all other kind of stuff. I did not have anything like this, so for a pandemic. So I've added that language to ours, but I just wanted to put that little suggestion out there. And if anybody needed help with that, if you're a NAPS member, you can log into the members only section and kind of take a look at some of those policies that are really good to have in place. And they're great marketing tools for when business does come back. So that's all.
Paula has spent a lot of time on this, and certainly, connect with her and take her up on her offer for some guidance. And I think the most shocking thing of this whole meeting is we've gone 2.5 hours without bringing up Tiger King. So
I know I smiled when we just started watching Ozark. I smiled. I'm like, what are you doing? You spy on me?
Awesome. Yeah, again, thank you, everyone. Please, if we did not get to your comment or your question, don't think that we were ignoring it. We had over 800 people registered, almost 500 people on at one point, still have about 250. We will certainly be combing through these comments and questions. Betsy brought up and I think we talked about this a couple times, the debt collection ban, and I think the state associations are certainly encouraging their members to get involved in that. I believe the New York Association has put some content out in that regard, and I'm sure other state associations, as well as the National Association, has as well. My parting thoughts are that we will look at doing another one of these, and this one was certainly a bit of a free-for-all. We just wanted to open up this conversation. We wanted to give the industry a voice and an opportunity to ask questions. I think we certainly have some debates amongst ourselves on some certain topics, and we definitely want to be addressing those, and also bringing on some subject matter experts and future ones as well. So thank you, and I'll turn it over to Steve and Adam for any final thoughts as well. But everyone will get a copy of this this recording and the slides in your email, hopefully by tomorrow morning. But thank you, Steve, Adam, final thoughts?
Adam, you want to go first? Want me to go first? All right. First of all, for just a common guy like myself to have this many people that want to have a conversation with me means a lot. And I just want to commend everyone who attended, whether they stayed to the end or not. It makes it worth it when you can see that you can start a conversation and a dialogue. And personally, I'm considering possibly doing something where we can do a national training maybe once a month or something. And we're not where everybody has to attend or anything like that, but where people attend who find it interesting, but then we can create a video repository of all of the training in case people want to view it at a different later time. But I thank you guys for making the time that I spent putting this presentation together worth it by attending, and I appreciate it. And Serve Now, Trent and Adam, you guys are awesome. I might have been stuck at 70, 80 people again if I hadn't been for you guys. Thank you.
Is that silence for me to say something?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the first time that I'm at a loss for word, Adam.
Yeah, no, I wasn't going to say anything, but I just wanted to I think it's thank you, Steve, for that. But to Gail's comment about PR in this industry, I think that this is an opportunity for us to, for many that were here, there's a chance that logging on to Zoom and this is your first webinar that you've ever attended. And this is the opportunity for all of us to use these tools and technology and community to create opportunity for all of us in the future. And just appreciative of Steve for bringing us into the fold and including on us on this. And I just want everybody to be safe and be careful out there. And one other comment on ServeNow, we're aggregating the information as we can on on the ServeNow section, and to please send that over so that we can inform the rest of the industry. We know things are happening different in jurisdiction to jurisdiction and state to state, and we're trying to pull this all together for everyone and do our part to help. And if there's more we can do, we want to hear it. And just thank you, and be safe, and thank you, Steve.
No problem. You guys take care and be safe out there, okay?
Thanks a lot,
Don't call me all at one time.
All right. Steve, thanks for putting yourself out there and, kind of in front of all these conversations that can have some controversy. And, I think together we'll talk through this, and, now more than ever, we need to be unified as an industry. So thanks again. We'll talk to everyone soon.
Thank you, Kyle. All right. Bye-bye, everyone.